Following the events of Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted, where Glitchtrap manages to take over Vanessa, allowing him to be freed from the VR experience, the prologue to Security Breach happens in FNaF AR. FNaF AR's story is told through both used and unused emails following Vanessa and a virus infecting Fazbear's systems. For the sake of making it easier to comprehend everything, since the story is split up into 3 different storylines that are heavily connected to each other, mentions of Ness is following the story of Vanessa, and mentions of circuit boards, glitches, viruses, or anything similar to it is the system glitch storyline. Then the 3rd storyline, which is the compliance team emails, which I'll talk about later. The story begins with an email pointing out that certain emails are being sent out to wrong addresses, which is where we pick up where we left off with Vanessa after the events of Help Wanted. Lewis had sent an email to Vanessa regarding her searches and that certain terms including torture are automatically flagged and sent to Lewis. She had ordered a Viking Blood Eagle 12-month calendar, and while that doesn't seem out of the ordinary, what got her there did. Lewis had emailed Ness about trigger words again and points out her searches of how to induce self-compliance and how to induce compliance in human subjects, which is followed up with help by itself. Lewis offers Ness to go for coffee or dinner sometime again and suggests to Ness to do these interesting searches at home. Lewis emails Ness again, checking up on her to see if she's doing well, and once again mentions her searches, specifically the one mentioning how far can a human being be cut in half before losing consciousness, which had concerned Lewis, saying that he was there for her if she needed anything. Lewis emailed Ness about a purchase of a lifelike human male rubber masks and was debating if it was for a screenplay. Lewis once again mentions the coffee, he really wants that date. Lewis finally gets to talk to Ness in person, and Ness seemed really interested in IT related stuff. Lewis once again brought up the coffee as he owes her one still. Lewis one day ends up finding Ness really close to the monitor, completely out of it, and it just completely in another world. Lewis had heard voices coming from the screen and had said if they ever needed to discuss anything, she could talk to him. Lewis mentions Ness having rainbow streaks. Switching perspectives now. We now hear from different employees responsible for taking apart the robots and getting the circuit boards within them, who eventually run into a glitch that came from scanning the boards, kicking them off the system, and Fazbear Entertainment ordered them to seize everything, especially work with vintage hardware. The employees who were tasked with scanning boards were halted until further notice, and one of the employees had asked Steve what board they scanned, and Steve responded with whatever Dan brought them. They mentioned Fazbear Entertainment ordered them to stop working and will be halting all further contracted work until further notice. The employees were concerned about their payment and worked directly afterwards. One of the boards that were scanned turned out to possess a virus within it, which spread really fast and actually caused a great amount of concern. The virus had continued to spread throughout the system, and it was traced back to one of the circuit boards that were scanned. An employee tried to contact Jim again about the virus that is spreading throughout multiple systems, causing a ton of problems. While this is happening, Lewis sent a long ass email that I'm not going to read, but I'll go ahead and put on the screen. But the basic gist of it is that Lewis is really concerned over how she has 2 different personalities, one that is lively and one that is actively sending threats to herself, aka the flowers for your grave message on the flowers. Lewis is just really concerned for her and sends another long ass email, but basically he says he always asks her if she's okay, as if he's perfect, but in reality he's not okay, and that's okay. He says he wished she'd write back to him and for Ness to let him understand her. Issue here is that there's a Mimic 1 version of acting low-key chilling her in the head right now. Someone finally gets back to Steve, and that someone is referred to as V_A. She informs him that Jim caught her up on what is going on and asks for access to the system to take a closer look at it. Steve gets back to the rest of the team about getting in contact with someone, but is suspicious about her since Jim Campbell never got back to him directly. Mark reassures Steve, saying it was a Fazbear Tech support email. Steve responds back to V_A, and she manages to isolate the virus into one location, for some reason not wiping it out completely. Anna lets everyone know they got someone in the process of wiping the virus. Eventually Mark says the virus was fully eliminated. While they celebrated, Lewis sends Ness an email about something. She didn't come into the office that day, but questions Ness if over the weekend she created an IT department email address for herself, using company credentials to reach out to a subcontractor to access her system. Lewis doesn't believe what he sees, but it really seems like she did do it, even though he doesn't want to believe it. Raha lets everyone know something was going on. An unknown user is using their system to give commands to active animatronics, turning off the safety features, being unable to turn them back on. She reassures them that the virus is completely gone and starts questioning if V_A from Fazbear still has access to their system. All of them slowly start getting kicked out of the system. Lewis sends another email to Ness, having hearing back from her for some time now. He asks about _Pizzaplex. Whoever created these false credentials is using them to override security protocols, allowing a data packet through after it was flagged as a virus. Steve tries contacting Jim again, saying it was urgent. Then another email from Lewis comes in. Please just let me know you're okay. There's a package here for you from a fabric company. Are you making a costume? The final 2 follow-up emails are shown to be related to the Pizzaplex. Vanessa A transferring from security to security via a transfer request. The final email being _Pizzaplex, the data packet that Ness let through. Then we see Vanessa A again under the month of September for the Fazbear Entertainment 3rd floor staff. She's 23, works under a security position, and likes bunny-shaped cake. Reaching the end of the prologue to Security Breach, which ultimately brings into question how we as theorists are supposed to handle this specific storyline, because most of it was scrapped and you don't really need it, but it adds a lot of context to how she ended up at the Pizzaplex. And the story does in fact still exist just purely because of Vanessa bringing up Lewis during one of the retro CD conversations in Security Breach, but still a majority of the emails themselves are scrap content that was 100% intended for the main lore, but it's ultimately up to the theorists if they want to use them or not. It doesn't really change much. Now, actually placing FNaF AR, given how it's happening during the time the retro CDs were recorded, and also using GGY, the Pizzaplex has been open for some time now. For how long specifically, I don't really know yet, which GGY takes place before the 4th therapist death in the retro CD, so around CD 13, and also Lewis is mentioned during CD 1 towards the end of the conversation. So by the time of CD 12, which Vanessa transfers to the Pizzaplex, Gregory, or also known as Patient 46, was doing all his evil shit way before Vanessa ever got there. And by the time of CD 15, which Vanessa had already transferred, it mentions Gregory talking to someone that looked like they had bunny ears, which is Vanny. Okay, so back to the other emails from the compliance team. The actual team working on the Fazbear Funtime service, these emails were more so used to explain why some of the animatronics were tweaking and stuff, specifically the toy animatronics, and they tried warning the higher-ups, but Charles from QA was mad about them going over his head to his boss to report the issue, and determined the Toy Freddy issue was non-legible, and said that he'll slap a note at the bottom of the customer mails, and it's not like they'll read them anyways, and they'll still be covered legally. Customers started to report about a vintage body model and it having a bad smell, and it wasn't appearing in any databases. Tristan from the compliance team said it was probably a troll. Charles emailed Tristan about the circuit board changes because a lot of the testers were saying the behavioral matrix was being way more aggressive. Tristan reassures him that they haven't done anything except to the plush suits, saying that there's no way for the animatronics to get into the holiday spirit and reprogram themselves. It's a machine controlled by a circuit board and nothing else. Nora emails Charles to let him know that the R&D didn't touch the animatronics. And that's where it ends. Obviously, all the storylines are connected. The compliance team just shows all the shit that's happening in the other emails are all directly affecting the Funtime service, but otherwise, we don't really know what the aftermath was. Survival Crew is a direct follow-up on AR, but obviously that never released, so yeah, this portion of the story is just left up in the air. Actually, as a matter of fact, we don't really know what becomes of the FNaF AR skin animatronics. I guess Firework Freddy has canonically pulled up to someone's house. That's pretty funny to think about.
When you wake up, what's that?